And I grew up around Christians who would kick their children out of their own homes sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Or just, speaking out against anything that they found wrong with the Bible, living in ways that didn't follow the biblical path.
Now, since you were in a small town, I don't even know, do you have brothers or sisters, or are you only child?
I have a younger brother.
Okay.
My brother was kind of in the same circle, but a little bit younger than me.
Okay.
He actually was on his way to the ministry.
Oh, geez. So at home, who are you going to ask these questions? Or who did you discuss, or did you discuss these things in your head?
Yeah, that was part of the bigger issue. When I was 12, we had confirmation, which is 40 years later, I'm still not 100% sure what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
I remember the preacher coming and asking us questions, having one-on-one sit downs about what we felt about the Bible. And, I'm a 12-year-old trying to impress the pastor who knows everything. So, the Bible's a rule book on how to do this and that. And he was like, well, that's not entirely right. And somehow I still got confirmed. But what I knew was there were a lot of things going on in my life and about my person that in that book that they have me reading, multiple reasons I should be put to death. Yeah. So the guy who is in charge of reading from the book that says in multiple places that I should either be stoned to death, whipped to death, or just some sort of put to death, that's not the person that I could talk to,
Yeah. It's it's funny you say that. I was talking to my mom this a couple of years ago, I guess, just as a casual conversation, and she lives in the same town we grew up in, or we lived in, and she goes to a church up north there in a little town, a smaller town, than even that. And they were talking about it was school shootings or one of those kind of things that's in the news, and her pastor is a designated grief counselor. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, I mean, kids need that, I think, but I'm curious what your little small town church and the small town high school would think if they sent in a Muslim to also be the grief counselor, because they would lose their freaking minds, right? Because just like you, I don't mind them being a grief counselor or anybody being a grief counselor if they're qualified, and these people probably are. But it's going to be a biased grief counsel. And like you were saying, how can you ask questions of someone whose job it is to teach you all these things from a very partisan perspective, right? You can't ask them for an objective opinion on 3 days in the belly of a whale. They're never going to give you what you and I would say is the right answer. They're going to give you their colored answer for the most part, right? Colored in favor of their religion, which is understandable, but if that's all you have around you is that guy and his wife and the other guy next door and the choir guy and leader of Sunday school, and there's no one, you're done. And we didn't have the internet because we're old,
Oh, no, it was a very small town. The guy that ran the church almost was the next door, and the choir guy was around the corner. It's a very small, compact area. Yeah.
That's funny.
Specifically for Christianity in this aspect, not only is it a book that says I should be put to death and all of these questions shouldn't have answered, the main friend of God from the first part of the book, Abraham, one of the things he was known the most for was putting his son on a sacrificial table.
Yeah.
That specific religion requiring its followers to have that kind of devotion.
Blind devotion. Yeah. Yeah. It's a big story.
And how am I supposed to ask questions like that of a parent who is expected to follow the letter of those laws to that extreme? And I grew up around Christians who would kick their children out of their own homes sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Or just, speaking out against anything that they found wrong with the Bible, living in ways that didn't follow the biblical path.
Right.
And yeah, it's like, who do you talk to? There's in that few people.